What is the biggest difference between a strong chess player and a less strong chess player? Is it tactical vision? Positional understanding? Perhaps all strong chess players have subscribed to Chessinators? While we're on this topic, you might as well do it. It takes like 2 seconds. Thank you. Anyways, I'm going to reveal the answer to this question in the end of the video. First, however, we will look at some games around this topic. Let us begin with the 7th game of my last over-the-board tournament. I am playing against a strong international master. If I lose this game or even draw this game, I lose the chance to get in IM norms this tournament. Here, with the white pieces, I am completely winning. I have a superior knight, safer king, better pawn structure, namely the pawns on c4, d6 and on f6 are very weak in this position, and generally speaking, better pieces. I'm not choosing my own games because I think they are the best. Then I would be choosing Magnus Carlsen's games. However, I understand the psychology involved to a much deeper extent, which is why I think they will have a lot of instructive value. In this position I went king g2, a safe move, a bit too safe perhaps. In this position, I'm sure you noticed that knight takes d6 is very tempting, winning a pawn and also attacking both the queen and the rook. And after queen h5, however, it is not so easy for white. It turns out that the move knight takes c8 in this position is met with queen h2, and after king f1, queen h3, black is able to tie down enough counterplay against white's king in order to get a perpetual. However, I could simply play rook 1 c2 instead of knight takes c8 in this position, keeping the h2 square under control, and then I have simply won an important pawn on d6. So knight takes d6 was the best move in the previous position. King g2, my opponent went queen d7, and here I went knight e3. I'd like you to pause the video and find out, is this a good move or not? If you're thinking that it's a good move because you're trading off pieces, which is usually something you should do when you're converting a position, right? It makes it a bit simpler when there are fewer pieces. That is one point. And another perspective is that the knight on f5 is superior to the knight on g4, so I'm trading away a better piece, right? The knight on f5 is like a bone in black's throat. So knight e3 was not the best move. And in fact, I could simply go rook takes c4 in this position. It turns out that rook takes c4, queen a4, which is something I feared in the game on account of queen a2, and then black gets some counterplay along the second rank. However, there is simply queen d2 in this position. And it turns out I was afraid of ghosts. Queen d2 covers the second rank very conveniently. Knight takes e3 was played in the game. Rook takes c3, queen e7 defending the pawn on f6, rook takes c4, rook takes c4, queen takes c4, and rook e8. In this position, white is up a healthy pawn, and the pawn on f6 and on d6 are both weaknesses. However, it turns out it's not easy to create a plan for white at all. It's not easy to see how to create a passed pawn here, or how to target the weak pawn on d6 or on f6. Unfortunately, I was not able to construct a winning plan this game, and it ended with a draw, and so ended my chances of getting an IM norm this tournament. Let us look at the 8th game this tournament. I am playing with the black pieces here, and as we see, the knight on b6 is horrific, the rook on f5 is simply a disaster, and also my opponent is simply up a very important central pawn here on d5. The opening went unideal, to say it this way. And in this position, the first thing I thought of, I'm playing with the black pieces, as aforementioned, then it's my move. Bishop takes c3, right? Queen takes c3. And then rook takes d5, regaining the pawn. At what cost, however? Look at the black king in this position. The dark squared bishop is really missing there. Since black has so many pawns on light squares around their king, the dark squares become incredibly weak in this position, which is particularly unpleasant since white has a dark squared bishop, and ideas of bishop b2 are going to be very unpleasant to deal with. Which is why I chose queen c7. This is the move I went for in the game. It attacks the knight on c3, and the idea is if this knight moves, then I'm going to win the pawn on d5 in this position. This move also uses some psychology, that my opponent is lower rated than me. He's a candidate master, right? And I'm a FIDE master, so I'm slightly higher rated. So there is some psychology involved in making this move too. In a moment you'll find out why. Anyway, what's the best move for white in this position? Alright, the best move is g4. Misplacing the black rook on f5. For instance, black has to go either rook e5 or rook f4, let's say. Let's start with rook e5. Now, the rook is covering the g7 bishop, so it is no longer attacking the c3 knight. Hence, the pawn on d5 is much easier to protect when you're not worrying about the knight on c3 potentially being taken. And the move like d6 in this position is very logical for white. And then white is up a healthy passed pawn. After rook f4, white has a win by force. Are you able to spot it? Alright, in this position, white can simply go knight b5. And after the queen moves, bishop d6, rook f6, the only square for the rook. And after bishop e5, the rook is trapped. If you were able to see this combination, you're a chess genius, congratulations. If not, don't worry, just hit the subscribe button and you'll soon be able to see such combinations. In the game, however, my opponent went d6. Seeing that this is a very easy draw, it is understandable as he was lower rated. However, he was much better in this position, so perhaps it is not the best move. Queen takes c3. His idea is d7, that I have to give away my knight for the pawn, and after queen takes d7 h5, we see the material is completely equal. The sides have roughly equally good pieces. It's a pretty drawish position, not too many pieces remaining. I tried to press for like 50 moves, but unfortunately my opponent was able to defend, obviously. It's a pretty drawish position. So the game ended in a draw. And now, how on earth did I not win the first game? And how on earth did I not lose the second game? It all boils down to one thing. Good chess players are good at swindling. Very often when I'm playing against grandmasters and I'm in a winning position, they find a way to make the win incredibly tough, putting up stubborn resources along the way. This is the same when I'm playing players rated below 2200. I make the conversion as difficult as possible, and in fact, not to brag or anything, just to show how important swindling is in chess. I have not lost against players rated below 2200 in over-the-board chess, classical time control, since August 2019. I hope the value of the skill to swindle in chess will resonate for you, and until next time.